Welcome to the Women Inspired Podcast. I'm your host, April Seifert. There is nothing more powerful than a woman who is inspired to action, and that's my number one goal, to inspire you, my listeners, to take action in your lives. Each week, I get to interview some of the most inspiring women, and I'm bringing those interviews to you. Let's do it. Hi, everybody. I am so happy that you joined this week because I've got a phenomenal woman for you to meet. She is an advocate for women. She is an advocate for moms. She's an advocate for self-care, and I am so pumped for you to meet her. So this week, you are going to get to meet Leslie Forde, who is the founder and author of the blog Mom's Hierarchy of Needs. Leslie, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
So before we dive in and I start hammering you with questions, help us get to know you just a little bit. So tell us a bit about yourself.
Absolutely. I'm the mom of two children. I have a 7-year-old and who just turned 7 and a 2.5-year-old, a boy and a girl. I have been working in marketing primarily for most of my career, marketing and business development, full-time. I took a short detour along the way and went to culinary school, a story for another time. So I also have a pastry degree and background. I have started this site and this blog really around helping moms find time and think about self-care and how important it is just out of pure, necessity. It's been a topic that I've been pretty obsessed with in my own life over the past several years since having children and trying to figure out smarter, better ways to enjoy life and retain some element of self-care and accomplish all of the things that I want to accomplish, personally and professionally.
Nice. So, Mom's Hierarchy of Needs. That's a really interesting. So, for those listeners who don't know this, my background is actually in social psychology. And so this kind of hits a fun little psychology trigger for me when I think about Maslow. But tell me a little bit about where that idea came from. So the idea that a mom has a hierarchy of needs.
Absolutely. So it's funny. I was having a conversation with a CEO last summer who was focused on, the conversation somehow came around to moms and stress and why are moms so stressed? And I said, well, kind of jokingly, there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs and there's mom's hierarchy of needs. And after I said it, there was something just internally that kind of clicked for me. Oh, yes, mom's hierarchy of needs. What would it look like if I were to draw the mom pyramid? What would be on it? And so I started just becoming a little obsessed with the idea. And I sketched it out on my notepad that day. I thought about it some more. I put it into a PowerPoint. I then decided to launch a survey and put it out to people in my network, friends of friends, and ask them to comment on it. If you had a hierarchy of needs, would it look like this? What would you change? Does it resonate? Doesn't it resonate? And after, I think, 2 rounds of edits, I really got it into a place where I felt most of the moms that I surveyed felt like it connected with them and it resonated with how their lives work. And I think what's disturbing about that is that, like Maslow, where all the foundational, most important things that you prioritize are on the bottom, for moms it often becomes the well-being of their families and their children and their household, whereas self-care, interests, hobbies, but even exercise and wellness kind of go way up to the top of the pyramid. They become these aspirational goals that we rarely fit in regular time for. So it made me really reflect on that, how it's impacting not just my own life, but how it's impacting moms everywhere, families, children, society. And it started me on this path of wanting to really understand it and spread the word about it.
That's so cool. And actually, I'm looking at it right now. And for those who need a little refresher in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, exactly as Leslie was saying, like these bottom needs are the basic fundamentals: food, shelter, clothing, safety, stuff like that. And the idea and the notion with Maslow is that you can't move up the hierarchy toward, at the top on Maslow's, he's got self-actualization. You can't move up that hierarchy until you've satisfied those lower rungs. And so when you think about it from that perspective, on your hierarchy, you've got interests and self-care and that type of thing at the top. You can't get there until you've satisfied children's well-being and children's activities and household and professional roles and healthy relationships. And then you finally get to yourself. And there's so little left.
Exactly. And it's so true. And but I believe that it's harming, it's harming us, right? It's harming, I think these issues harm women in general. I've been looking at it through the lens as a mom. And I think the difference perhaps for a mom versus a woman who doesn't have children is only that the discretionary time is even more fractured. But I think that there are a lot of reasons that, people and women in particular put their self-care last. And it has to change. It has to change.
Tell me a little bit more. You mentioned that you feel like this is really detrimental to us and that this is harming us. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. Well, as I've been researching this, and particularly a study that I, launched just recently around the mental workload and kind of that invisible, always on to-do list and how it's affecting moms, it's just taking not only such a toll on our energy, and as I've learned particularly over the past year, not just physical energy, but mental energy is a really key component to being able to learn new things and to be able to accomplish new things. So if you have, professional ambitions or personal ambitions, whether it's you want to, achieve the next rung in your education, or you want to learn Spanish, or you want to launch a blog, or you want to start a business, whatever that dream is or those goals are, you need some mental energy and clarity to be able to accomplish them. And you need to be physically well, right, to put your time into something new. And if your self-care is always the last on the list, if you're always prioritizing taking care of everybody else and your obligations first, it's really difficult, I think, to kind of stretch to that next place. And, women are increasingly an important part of the economic picture, societally, in our families. Many families, I'd say actually, and there's several studies, the majority of families, moms are contributing, more than half to the household income. Mm-hmm. So if you can't continue to grow and stretch yourself and create new opportunity, professionally speaking, that hurts your family, that hurts society. It limits your freedom and flexibility. It limits women and moms in ways that, aren't fair, aren't right, and aren't good for anybody. So if mom is extremely stressed out because she's not taking care of herself, that hurts the relationship with her children. It hurts the relationship she has with her partner, if she has a partner. and it limits the attention she can give to new things.
Okay, this is going in such a nerdy direction that I didn't expect us to go, but there's a
Let's
ton.
Go there. I can do that.
Just dive right in, right? There's a ton of psych research that actually supports what you were just saying around this mental load. So many of you who are listening to this have probably seen posts on social media and other places that talk about the mental load, but basically it's like that to-do list that's sort of running through your mind at all times. And fractured is the best word. So I have to make this doctor's appointment, and did I take that garbage out? And we have to make sure we go to Target and get this thing, and I have to send that email, and I have to call this person back. We need a birthday card for this other thing. And like this play date needs to be scheduled, but that's conflicting with this other thing that I need to reschedule. Like all these things are happening all at once. And one of the, so for those who aren't familiar with social psychology, we were the branch of psychology that led to the IRB, or the Internal Review Board, that was basically created to protect human subjects, because we were responsible for the Zimbardo prison experiment, where people were put in the basement of a college building, and it turned into this like really punitive, like bad situation. They had to stop the experiment. We were responsible for the shock study, where people thought they were delivering electric shocks to people and they thought they killed someone, and it was like really hard to debrief them out of it. It was like really mentally scarring. So that's my field. Right. But so we're kind of known for putting
light stuff.
Totally. So we're kind of known for putting people in these sort of difficult situations in our experiments. And one thing that we do is we put people under what's called cognitive load. And what we'll do is we'll give people like, I don't know, a 6, 7, 8-digit number, and we'll tell them they have to remember that number. And that's too many digits for you to remember just by reading it once.
Right.
You have to like sit and recite that number in your mind in order to remember it. So they're sitting there reciting these digits, and then we ask them to do a task that also requires cognitive load. And people they lose the ability to problem solve. They lose the ability to emotionally self-regulate. They lose the ability to like take in and digest detail. Like all of those things just fall in the toilet when you're under mental load. So you think about like that crazy to-do list, which is much more than 8 digits long. and you're supposed to go have a job.
That's
and like,
true.
Be calm and patient with your kids when they're freaking out about stuff. Exactly. It's so difficult.
Exactly. Well, and that's exactly it. It's fraying. And I just have found that inevitably when I'm talking to moms about, life and how things are going, inevitably this is the issue. It's like we love our children, we love our families. We are, I think, blessed and grateful to have children in our lives, and everybody has that deep appreciation. However, the execution of modern life and the responsibilities, especially if work is part of it, feels like untenable, and it feels unsustainable. And there's just, I think, a series of unfortunate things that have happened because it feels like we're all in this giant experiment where we're kind of running on the wheel and trying to, like, I think when you want to break through, as thinking about the tone of your series, if you want to break through to that next level, whatever it is in your life, you need energy, you need clarity, you need to problem solve, and all of those things require a certain amount of emotional, psychological, and physical health to do them. And to do them, you need to take care of yourself. And I think to be able to take care of your family and your children, you need to take care of yourself.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I'm 100% behind behind the goals of the blog. I just think it's awesome. Tell me a little bit about, so I've kind of peeked through your blog a bit. Tell me a little bit about the posts you've made and the folks you've interviewed and the content you're putting out, because I mean, it really, as somebody who, has a kid and is dead in the middle of all of this, it definitely resonates. So I'm curious for you to just sort of take us on the journey through, what you've posted and put together so far.
Absolutely. So, after I kind of started on this path, it was somewhat, again, unplanned to research this. I looked into, well, what's causing the stress? And the most recent survey around the mental load, but even before that, like what's causing the stress? And when you don't feel stressed, why is that? What are you doing? What helps? And, different forms of self-care help, but of course, no one's making the time for that on a regular basis. And so I just started thinking, well, you know what? We all know there's a lot of reasons in society that things are the way they are for moms, and there's a lot of big picture, shifts that have to happen, I think, to make working, whether it be working families or just families in general, to make kind of the society friendlier for families. But until that happens, what about today? What about next week? What about this month or this year? Like how can we make more time, more meaningful time to, pursue either the passions we have, the goals that we have for ourselves, or just plain self-care? What are the hacks to make that happen? What are the shortcuts? What are people doing? What are the smart moves, or just shifts in the way we think about ourselves and what's possible that can allow us to get there today instead of years from now? So I've been taking that approach, like playing the short game. How can women and moms particularly find time and carve out whatever love they have in their mind, aside, whether it be for their families or for themselves, whether it be launching that business or being able to go to the gym or being able to just spend less time cooking, whatever it is, how to do it and how to actually execute on it, not just at a high level, because I think there's so many wonderful examples of people that are doing incredible things in their lives, and you often kind of hear about them when they've stepped onto the stage and they're being recognized for doing something really incredible. But all the little steps along the way that allowed them to get there, and how they changed their habits and how they kind of fine-tuned their day-to-day life to make it happen, there's not as much that's shared about that. So I felt like for moms, taking some of that advice that's out there in general, but really breaking it down in a way that I think is more realistic for a busy mom, is something I've been trying to do and bring a voice to.
It's interesting because a lot of the women, not surprisingly, a lot of the women that I have on the podcast are very, very passionate about, equal rights and egalitarianism and that type of thing. And they're women who are working really hard to make those societal changes and, work on policy and try to elevate women to have the, same opportunities that men have and that type of thing. And I am 100% behind those folks and definitely share their motivation and share their passion that we do need to make societal changes. But what I think is interesting about what you're doing is today, I need to be able to have some sanity today while I'm working on the long game. And so I think It's neat that you're offering these solutions to the short game.
Thank you. Well, it's also, I think, selfishly, also to feel empowered, because the long game and the societal change, that involves buy-in from a lot of different entities to truly make that happen in a meaningful way. But if you look at your life and your today and tomorrow and next week and year, then, it feels less scary. And it feels more, at least for me, uplifting if I know that, wow, you know what? I can I can do this for myself, or I can do this for my career or my family, and I have it within my power to take these steps and make something happen that's meaningful to me. And I don't have to wait for something else to shift to do it. Like, I can make it happen. So for me, that message is activating, at least for myself, and I hope for others.
Totally. There's a really cool thing that I heard on another podcast one time, and I'm sure it's out there in other places as well, but it's this idea of taking, and it sounds crazy at first, but when you unpack it, it actually kind of makes sense. This idea of taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens to you. And what's the nuance there is that sometimes the word responsibility gets sort of convoluted with blame or guilt. So, or fault. Like, if a negative thing happens to you, or if you find yourself in a circumstance that's really difficult, it may not be your fault. It may not be due to choices you made. That may just be the world, other people, your boss, whatever, your family, a combination of those putting you in that situation. But you should take responsibility for trying to figure out how to improve that situation, because it's much more empowering to think about it that way. It gives you the control. It gives you the power to make changes. And you become less passive and less dependent on waiting for someone else to save you and waiting for someone else to help fix your situation and make you happy. It's like, this is my responsibility. I didn't ask to be here, but I am here. So I'm going to take responsibility, and I'm going to make this the best that I possibly can. And that's kind of what I'm feeling in what you're saying.
Absolutely. And, and I love that. I hadn't heard it positioned that way, but I have, heard some different studies and have been reading a lot about not just productivity, but also happiness, right? And they've, the people who are in the business of studying happiness, right, tend to learn that it's more internal than external. So it's less about your circumstances and what is happening to you, but how you view your circumstances and how you take action based on your circumstances. And I think that's an incredibly powerful and activating way to view life. So I'm fully embracing that most of the time.
I mean, that's really it, right?
There's
you just
a
want to
bad
round
day
up
here and there. Yeah.
Round up and get there the majority of the time.
Exactly. There are a few days where I am not bringing my best game to the day, but generally speaking, I'm there.
Yeah, absolutely. You're limiting the number of dumpster fires that you have going on. Have more good days than that.
Hey guys, okay, I wanted to take a really quick break in this episode with Leslie Forde to tell you a little bit about a free, absolutely free tool that I have just released on my website. I am so passionate about helping people make the most of their lives. It's extremely important to me that we go out and go after the things that we want, and we intentionally craft a life that brings us joy. So I want to help you do just that. If you head to my website right now and sign up for my email list, I will send you the link to my free life blueprinting tool. This is a tool that I will be using in my upcoming in-person workshops as I help people design a life that is more in line with the things that they find important and that brings them joy and lights them up. This tool was created using the foundational principles of the fields of psychology and of design thinking, and it will walk you step by step through creating a blueprint of your current life and figuring out with clarity where those areas are that you can begin to work or to prototype, to use a word from design thinking, to prototype to start to make improvements. So I really hope you'll hop over to my website, www.aprilseifert.com, and pick up your copy of my life blueprinting tool today. All right, let's get back to the interview with Leslie.
I want to get a little tactical. So
Sure.
You've talked to a lot of people, you've done a ton of research. What I adore about this is that you're not, you're doing research, you're collecting data, and you're getting input from other people, which I think is so awesome and valuable. What are a couple of bits of information that people listening to this might benefit from, like tactical, practical things that you've learned that they may be able to implement?
Absolutely. I'm trying to think of the things that have had some of the biggest impact for my own life that I've put into practice. And I've read them, seen them in lots of different places, and I've tried to kind of adapt them. So getting up early, really early. I try to be up, at least an hour to an hour and a half before my children, sometimes more. Now, of course, as for anyone with young kids, you can't always predict that, right? You're like this morning, my daughter was up at 2:45 and unable to get back to sleep, which was awesome. So, that happens. So, but generally speaking, starting my day much, much earlier, and also prioritizing sleep. I think everybody is hearing this now, but I see real difference that if I am prioritizing sleep and getting to bed earlier and actually trying to rig things for success with sleep, that my ability to think creatively, solve problems with clarity, exponentially increases. So I'm recognizing that and aware of it and putting that as a priority. Like I actually set an alarm as a daily reminder on my calendar, just saying, okay, prep for bed. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I ignore it, especially if I have a lot going on that day, but it's another way of reminding myself that, wow, get to sleep. You will be able to accomplish things better, smarter, faster if you wait and do it at 5 a.m. tomorrow instead of trying to stay up till midnight. I've also just looked at my time differently. I've given up a lot of things to make time for what I'm doing now. I liked kind of watching TV with my husband, after the kids were asleep and, kind of unwinding a little bit with him, just kind of passively letting someone else entertain me. I've pretty much given up TV. I, used to spend much more time with complex beauty routines, like my manicures and my hair. And I'm not saying let yourself go, not at all, but I have brought down the complexity of some of those daily routines just to buy myself an extra 30 minutes a day or an extra 20 minutes a day. So I've kind of meticulously gone through everything I do before work and after my kids are asleep to really reduce time. I am, getting some of the things that I think I have learned as well from others, just getting smart, actually from you, getting smart about technology. I, the next day, I signed up for Evernote, and I really do like that. So that was a really great tip. And just upping my infrastructure to handle things better. And also, I'm trying to give myself permission to not sign my children up for every single experience and really pick and choose the experiences that are the most meaningful. There were a couple women I've interviewed who really had some great advice around this. But, I want my kids to have a wide range of experiences so that they can later in life have those to draw upon as they choose their path. And the logistics of getting kids to, countless activities on the weekends and during the week, that becomes really untenable. It becomes stressful. It becomes expensive. For lots of reasons, I'm trying to streamline that in a way that I can feel good about and feel like they're still getting the experience I want them to have, but I can also manage the logistics of it.
What I hear you saying is it's like it sounds so obvious, right? I mean, whatever. But what I hear you saying is it's it's balance. Like you could, let's think about the bottom of your hierarchy. And for those of you who are listening to this, I really encourage you to go to her website and just browse through the hierarchy because it's really eye-opening. But you could give your kid every single experience. You could sign them up for every single sport, every activity, all the groups, all the things, right? And there literally would be no time left, none for you. And so what I hear you saying is just sort of balance those scales out. Instead of 5 activities, maybe pick 1 or 2 that are the favorites that time, table the other ones. There's going to be another summer, there's going to be another weekend, there'll be another opportunity. But you're a fully formed human. You are worthy of having a little bit of time also. And so just even the scales out and make it just a little bit more fair.
Exactly. Well, also, I found myself, and sadly still find myself some days, like I become dragon mommy, right? I think most of what was coming out of my mouth was, let's go, let's hustle, we're running behind, we need to be here, we need to be there. And I had to step back and look at that and examine it. Like, I imagine it can't be a good experience for my children if I'm so stressed out to get from point A to point B because so much has been crammed into the schedule. It's like forced fun. Forced fun is not fun. And I don't want that to be the way all of our weekends and all of our evenings go either. Like, I'd like them to have some of the, I think, beauty of having some unstructured time to think and to play and to interact with us, and not have it be, well, get dressed, get on the soccer shoes, get on this, like we're going at full speed. It was becoming a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just imagine it makes your experience day to day so much better. I mean, a little bit calmer, a little bit more margin, a little bit more breathing room and white space to just take a breath.
Margin and white space are good. Exactly. So
Absolutely.
I'm trying to build that in very intentionally, but I've had to pull a lot of stuff out. And some things that didn't matter to me that much, but there are other things that do matter to me, but I've had to give myself permission to pull back from them for now, so that I can have more time and less complexity.
Yep. There's an episode that I released a few weeks ago. A woman named Jessie Scavone, and she's a former naval officer, super high achieving, whatever. And she talked about exactly that. She said, I decided that having a family was a priority and was really important to me. And so she's like, I don't think you can do it all. I really don't think you can do every single thing you want to do. She's like, I'm pretty sure you can do like 2 to 3 things well, 3 things well, and that's it. And one of those things should be like your hobby or something that is yours. And the other ones are probably your career and your family. And like, you can't do more than that. And so she just was really realistic about how she keeps sane and really blocks out and is very, very intentional about keeping margin in her day.
Oh, that's very wise. I will absolutely listen to that.
She's fantastic. Right. She's totally fantastic. I could sit here and talk to you all dang day. I really could, because I mean, this topic is so important, and it's one that I think hits a lot of us, who are trying to juggle all the things at the same time. And so I just really appreciate the work that you're doing. And I think it's really important, and it's very actionable on a day-to-day basis. I think people will find a lot of value in what you're doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
So if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
They can find, momshierarchyofneeds.com. I'm also on Twitter at Leslie Forde or at momshierarchyofneeds.com. I'm on LinkedIn. There's a Mom's Hierarchy of Needs Facebook page now. So I'm kind of out there, and then Instagram, there's a Mom's Hierarchy of Needs Instagram handle. So I am in social spaces and reachable, and I really appreciate feedback. I'd love for more women to be part of this conversation, and recommend resources they've found. I've actually had people just this past week send me book recommendations on books that are about productivity, dealing with the mental workload. I mean, it's been really incredible. So I'm learning a lot. Wonderful people, like you, are kind of coming into my life, and this has been it's been a really incredible addition, I think, to my life.
That's so great. Well, likewise, I was so excited to meet you. And for those listening, I actually did a little interview with Leslie as well. It's on her blog, momshierarchyofneeds.com. She's an amazing writer. And so I'd highly suggest you check that post out and all the rest of her posts because they are fantastic. As I said, I could talk to you all day. I have a million other questions that I want to ask you. I have a million things that I wish you could share on this episode, but I'll just say, for those of you who are interested in this topic, please check out her blog. It's so fantastic. You can get all of the stuff that we've talked about and so much more. Check out the hierarchy. It's really, really eye-opening. But before we leave, I have to ask you the last question that I ask every single person that I interview, and that is for your favorite motivational song to add to our Power playlist on Spotify.
Oh, absolutely. I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor.
Yeah.
I think for years that's a song where if I turn that on, I feel like Superwoman. And
Nice.
Any woman who has gone through the journey of life has had something or someone or some event, kind of throw unpredictable hurdles in their way. So knowing that whatever life puts in front of you, that you have that capability to figure it out, get past it, survive, thrive. I think that's a message that definitely brings me up to my kind of highest feeling of achievement and energy. And that song does it for me.
So awesome. Thank you so much for being here. This is just amazing.
Thank you. Likewise, I'm really thrilled. Thank you for inviting me.
I really hope you guys enjoyed that interview with the wonderful Leslie Forde, founder of the blog Mom's Hierarchy of Needs. I got so much out of my interview with her, and actually, if you sign up for her email list over at her website, she is sending out the best stuff. Just this morning, I received an email from her that had a free download to her meal prep guide. She is a foodie at heart, a massive at-home chef, and this is basically Leslie's antidote for trying to cook home-cooked meals on a busy schedule with lots of kids. And it's just fantastic. It's really great ideas, and there's already a couple that 100% are going to land on my menu this week. So I highly suggest you pop over to her website to get your copy. There are a few ideas that I want to bring together as I wrap up this week's episode. So 3 things in particular. Number 1, the idea of self-care. Number 2, the idea of taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens to you. And number 3, I mentioned it before, but this idea of my life blueprint tool. So the whole notion behind designing and creating your own life is that foundational idea that we have and we need to take 100% responsibility for everything that happens to us. Now, during the episode, I made a really important distinction that is worth saying again. Responsibility is not the same as fault or blame. So if you are in a difficult situation that someone else has caused, if someone else has done something to you that is just terrible, or you find yourself, having bad luck or in a set of circumstances that you aren't to blame for, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not saying that you're to blame for your situation. I'm not saying that you are at fault for your situation. However, what I am saying is you have the ability to start to do things differently to try to improve your situation and to work to get yourself out of it. Take 100% responsibility for doing that. Another way of saying that, if that responsibility word is difficult to swallow, take control back. You have more control than you think you do, even if you're making tiny steps each day. And that's where I want to go with this. So, self-care. Leslie made the incredibly poignant point that taking care of ourselves is not a selfish act. Yes, it makes us feel better, but what it allows us to do is show up better for our relationships, show up better for your close relationships with your spouse or your partner, show up better in your relationships with your friends, at work, with your kids. Everybody in your life gets a better version of you when you are taking care of yourself. There's a reason why on a plane, when things start to go awry, they tell you to put your own oxygen mask on first before you start assisting other people. It's because if you're passing out, you're not helping anyone. So basically, you need to take it seriously and take care of yourself so that you can show up, if for no other reason, you can show up the best version of yourself so that you can help other people. Now, what if, just for a fun thought experiment, what if you went to my website? What if you downloaded my free life blueprinting tool? And what if you actually used it and mapped your whole life out? What if you found those areas that are pain points for you and you started to work on them, and that allowed you some time, some margin, and some white space to start taking care of yourself better? What if you took responsibility to do that? Think about how your day-to-day experience would be different. And now on the flip side, I want you to think about how your experience is going to be if you don't do that. If you keep grinding it out, if you keep sacrificing for yourself, if you keep grinding out on those bottom rungs of the hierarchy that Leslie shows on her website, if you focus all your time and energy on those and leave nothing left for yourself. That's not a good situation for anybody, you included. So, if there's anything that you take away from this episode, it's this. I want you to make yourself a priority, and I want you to take 100% responsibility for doing that and find some creative ways to make it happen. Heck, send me an email at my website, www.aprilseifert.com. I would be happy to help you brainstorm ways to start to prototype and inch your way toward an experience that will let you do that. I would be happy to do that with you. All right, I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, if you're enjoying the podcast, as always, I'm going to beg and plead for ratings, for reviews on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, any of the iHeartRadio, any of the places that you're listening to me. I would love your ratings and reviews. It makes it easier for people to find my podcast and find this type of inspiring content when they're looking for it. And also, shoot me a note if there's something that you want me to talk about on the podcast, if there's a guest that you have in mind. I'm hearing from you guys. I'm getting the people that you're nominating for the episodes, and I am trying so hard to get them all on. I'm hearing about amazing, amazing women who are doing such great things out in the world, and that just is even more gas on this fire that I am stoking so that I can bring this awesome content to you guys. So I hope you're having an awesome week. I can't wait to bring you our next guest, and as always, have an inspiring week.